Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced these Porch Play Chats that are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all the Porch Play Chats if you go to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, follow us on Instagram, be a friend on our Facebook page, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Tessa Baden. Hi, Tessa.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
So glad you're here. So Tessa is a nature and play advocate who shares her personal transformation story to inspire reflection, connection, and evolution in others. She started her career at Camp C.A.M.P and other preschools, and she spent 15 years journeying through public and private spaces, exploring opportunities to ensure adults trust and honor children's learning to occur in the most authentic form. And so what I love about Tessa's Porch Play Chat title today is it's finding peace in play and the adult's role. So, I think when people in their head imagine play, they don't find it as being peaceful. I'm very excited to explore this topic with you because it can be so authentically satisfying when you're with children who are playing, that you are not directing, that you are not guiding, but that you are experiencing the joy with them. That I think I just get all warm and fuzzy when I see children playing in an authentic, child-initiated exploration way. So, talk to us more about this. I love this topic.
Well, and kind of while you were talking, I was wondering, I'm going to ask you in a minute, I'm just going to ask you a little bit about if you have a journey and, not to put you on the spot, but I'm always asking others because all I know is my own. Right. The only thing I can speak to is my own personal journey with finding peace and play. And I did not find peace and play at the beginning of my life and career. Now, I was a playful person, still am, when my boss calls me in, I'm like, am I in trouble? It's like this positive, or like, I was always reaching outside the box and being curious. And as a child, and my mother, I'm thankful that she nurtured that. But in my career, while I was a super playful, what they called in schools, enthusiastic person about life and everything, I suddenly went into this mode of like, I didn't allow the children to play. And I don't know why, and so this, my career started with a classroom where I was doing things that like, now if I went into a classroom and saw that, I would just be like, I would be feeling shock and worry and concern, even though I was that person. I would try. And so because of my journey started like a little bit, not finding peace in play and how I got to where I am now, I just like to share a little bit about that, especially anyone who's helping spread the word, like advocating for play. If you yourself are so like, we should let everybody just play, let it happen. We trust it. But if you go to talk to someone like I was my first year of teaching, and you just say that, I would have just exited the conversation, whether it be physically or mentally, right? I would have just shut down, and just spending the last 10 years or so unpacking why I was the way I was and who I am now has been just this process of like, how can I advocate the best for play? Is I need to help every individual. And I guess I shouldn't say I need to help. I want to support conversations about the continuum of finding peace and play. Right.
Well, I think mine started as a child though, right? I played for hours without adult supervision. I'm sure my mom was looking out the kitchen window, following my progress on 5 acres, checking in occasionally, right? But there was no no, other than, okay, outside, it's time to play, right? That was it. And so my piece as a child and how I see the benefits of that experience for years, because I didn't get to go to kindergarten, those experiences that I had when I was playing and how they contributed to my success and I'm not a child prodigy, but my success when I got into the academic rigor that back then was nothing like it is today. Back then it was more developmentally appropriate versus, or developmentally effective. I'm changing my terminology. And so I've always had a passion for play. I always played with my children. I always took them places where they could play. And then when I got in the classroom, I began to wonder why we kept telling children what to do all the time when I saw them as capable and competent little beings. But that doesn't mean it was the play I believe in today. You know, I think as a new teacher, you're overwhelmed and intimidated because you may be the only voice for child initiated play that's not guided by an adult, right?
Yeah. And what I'm hearing you say is like, you had, maybe it was innate, maybe you took your childhood and you just were able to apply it, but my brain didn't for some reason. I went straight to my first year of teaching. If somebody would have asked me now in college, when I wrote about what I wanted to be as a teacher, if I go back and read that, it's very similar to my feelings right now, which is such a strange phenomenon. So I'm in college writing about what I hope for, my pedagogy, like just all of that stuff, right? And then my first year teaching, I turned into a drill sergeant.
Well, and I think it's because of the pressure. No, I think oh my God, I'm in this professional role. I have to act like a professional, or the people around you you wanted to fit in.
Maybe, yeah.
Your
could
program.
have been a lot of different things, right?
Yes, it could be so many different things.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm a big believer in therapy, right? So therapists have told me over the years, like, you need to let, you know, they're saying you do what you do with what you know, like you do the best you can with what you know at the time, and then you move forward, which is something I go back to all the time when I'm sharing this story, right? Like my own personal journey of trying to find peace in play. And so I just like to that reflection, like, I'm glad I like to hear others like yours just now, just what are we fighting? What do we know? What do we currently understand? And that's why I'm like, if you're going into teaching as a 20-year-old before you have your own children, or that you don't have your own, or you're never going to have your own children, and that's just your work. Or if you've been a parent yet, or a caregiver before you go into public school, you know, all those different experiences matter to your personal journey. And I like to look at it now as a continuum. So like, if you're looking to find peace and play and you're looking at that adult role, you need to figure out where, who said the quote, maybe you remember, the best way to move forward as a teacher is to first look inside yourself.
That's a great quote, but I don't remember who.
I don't remember. Whoever that is out there, you get credit.
Thank you.
This is not Tessa's quote, but if you can, when you're having conversations with anyone else, like-minded or not, if you start with being vulnerable and telling, I like to use storytelling when it comes to supporting growth of anyone, children, adults, whatever, right? But you can't tell someone else's story. You can refer to it, but telling your own story, being vulnerable, I think that is what's grown me the most. Not the training. I mean, of course, I appreciate all the training I've had over the years, but the practice of identifying where I am currently, my current role, or what I have to deal with and how I'm dealing with it, then I can find out in the continuum where I am of finding peace and play.
Well, and another way to look at it is I'm a nana, of course, of 8, of course, gifted grandchildren, each one of them, right? They're gifted, right? And I'm a much better nana than I was a mom. And I learned, and I thought I was a pretty good mom, but I'm a much better nana. And it's because we experience things, and I had great parenting. So, you know, unless you determine to do something different, you parent the way you were parented. And I had great parents. But that doesn't mean I was awesome at being a parent, even though I had great parents. But when I went to school and I got my degrees and I began to understand child development more, I think that's what helped me see it through a different lens. Oh, yes, I understand as a mom, this is how I might approach parenting. But as a teacher, these aren't my children. And how I'm going to facilitate their growth and development is different than how I might if they were my children. And I need to respect other parents' beliefs about that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think I agree with you. It's a journey. You walk into the classroom with all this wonderful, you know, I always tell my students, please remember what you've learned in this classroom, because our focus is all about play. And I said, don't be intimidated when you go someplace else and no one else does it. Just remember what you learned here and why it's important and how you're helping children reach their potential. And then, of course, I always add, and if you don't, I will haunt you.
I'll find you.
I will haunt you. Yeah. And they all laugh and go,
Yeah.
And, you know, I say, this is what I said to my children. Before you make a decision that may not be the best decision, say, what would mom think about this? Right. And so I say to my students every year, before you make any decision or you decide on any approach, what do you think Dr. Lawrence would say about that? Because I want them to hear my thoughts in their little brains.
Yeah.
Before they make these decisions that are so impactful for children.
Right. The dignity, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I always go back to that word too, which is a whole nother, I mean, we could go off on dignity all day right now.
All day long.
Which is one of the things I learned at the camp you mentioned,
Yes.
Camp. It's brought me a lot of understanding about dignity and the rights of others. But so to go back to what you were saying, which brings into a really important point when we're looking at the adult's role. So the topic I sent you, or that I wanted to discuss, that I get excited about discussing, is finding peace and play, the adult's role. But an interesting concept is there's a variety of roles that each of us adults play at different times of our lives, even different parts of our day, right? So finding peace and play could be that you're finding peace in play to begin your continuum of growth, is identifying a part of your day that you would be feeling more at peace, to start exploring being, allowing children some more child initiated activity, right? So of course, now I could go all day long and find peace and play but the reason why is because my journey has included a continuum of understanding and people in my life that I can talk to, like you, like I can text you, call you and be like, I am struggling with the idea of this or that, right? It's not that every idea about play just was, seed dropped in my heart. And I just said, sure, I have a brain of, but why, who, how, what, research, what? I got to know more. I got to dissect and have discourse and go back and forth with someone who's either going to not agree with me and challenge me, right? Like to think. And if you are looking to find peace and play, there are all these different avenues that you can begin with, such as finding a time of day where you are feeling more at peace just with the world. Like, I'm not having to cook dinner right now. That's not a good time to start your journey, right? So find 15 minutes when you get home before you start dinner and I'm talking to families right now, or adults, like find the 15 minutes of the school day that you are most at, like the children are, I don't know, more engaged with something. They love about the classroom. Find a 15-minute period. Don't go huge yet. If you're like, nope, I don't believe it, you're crazy. It's sometimes because we're putting too much, like everybody should be doing this like today or yesterday, all of this, which, in my heart, I do think, but I also have to meet
where they are,
talking to where they are.
Just
same
like children.
Exactly. The exact same learning processes and independent thinking and enjoyment of learning that we believe in for children, we should apply to adults. They are just big kids,
Mhm.
you know, and it's just so fun to work with adults when you look at it like that. Stop
It is.
expecting that.
Well,
You
and
know?
I think one of the things that I find too is that adults know it, just like you said, in my educational philosophy, or when I was writing papers about my future classroom. I could describe what I wanted, but something happened when I was actually put in that position. What I find a lot of the times is and I've done this session all over the world. So when I do a particular session, lost opportunities, how teaching interferes with learning, right?
Yes.
People will tell me exactly how do children learn. They learn through play. What do children like to do during the preschool day? They like to play, they like to go outside, they like to eat, they like to, they'll tell me all these things. But then when they write down their daily schedule, what they said is not what's happening, right?
Mhm.
Because somehow or another, we have a disconnect between what we believe strongly and what we actually do in a classroom.
Mhm.
And so that reflection, you were talking about that reflection piece, is so important to actually reflect on what was in your mind when you were going to school or when you were thinking about being a teacher. And what are you doing and where is the conflict? And one of the in this session, one of the questions I ask is, what is the hardest times of a day for a preschool teacher? And it could be for a toddler teacher, it could be for an infant teacher, it could be for a kindergarten teacher, it doesn't matter, but typically they're preschool teachers. And they always say transitions. And then when I ask them to count how many transitions are in their daily schedules, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And so, that's one way they could find some peace
Yes.
in
I
their
love it.
role as an adult. Take out some of those transitions and see what happens.
Right. And I think that's, again, the adult's role. So is the adult's role actually learning how to play with kids better? Is the adult's role learning how to make environments that support more play? Is the adult's role looking at the schedule and making adult-sized choices to increase the opportunity for student-led play where you're okay?
Yes.
Because I think the biggest thing is a teacher who is like, I believe it. I see, like, I believe you. I remember my own childhood. I want to do more play. And they'll get to their school and they're like, what's that first step? And so I think like the conversation about finding peace in play has all these aspects that you're bringing up. The schedule, the environment, how you are personally feeling. Do you, I don't know, do you wear like an Apple Watch or a smartwatch ever?
I have a Fitbit.
Okay. So I have an Apple Watch and sometimes it tells me to breathe. And I'm like, I don't have time. Right. So it lights up like mindfulness. Don't forget to breathe. Right. And I'll look at the watch and I actually have a thought of like, I don't have time for that. But if you ask me when I'm calm, if I'm like a believer in how breathing and your own physiology impacts the interactions and the peace of yourself and your students, I'm a huge believer. Meditation, but every now and then life, it's telling me to breathe and I don't have time to breathe.
I don't have time. I have 25 things to do.
Yes. I go, and so then you're thinking, oh my gosh. And that's a big sign for me. Like my adult role here is to be more aware of how I'm feeling, because the only person that can control how I'm feeling is me.
Right.
And it is not okay to put any pressure on children. Children are not making you feel something. Children are being children. You are choosing to have an emotional reaction, whether you agree with that or not. That is accurate, according to like Joe Dispenza's book, right? Like you can control your own brain. You can.
Well, and I think the other thing that's so important to remember is that your reactions impact the children's reactions,
exactly.
Right? So, I learned this when I was a director for 100 years. And maybe there was something personal going on, but I tried not to bring any personal stuff into work. I mean, sometimes it was not possible when your husband served you divorce papers on your wedding anniversary, right?
Yeah, not a rough day.
Not possible, right? But, but I would think I was not bringing whatever had taken place into the workplace. And every morning I would go around and greet every teacher and see what was happening and if they needed anything, blah, 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 blah. And I did my walkthroughs 4 or 5 times a day just to check in on people. Or if they said I really need a break, I'd be in the classroom playing with kids. And one of my teachers who knew me really well came up to me and said, "Are you mad at me?" And I went, "I'm not mad at you. Why did you think I was mad at you? You just look like you're mad at me." It was, yeah.
You're wearing your emotions, right?
You are. Yeah. No matter how much.
I mean, even your shoulders. Like,
yes.
just
Oh,
your
yeah.
body placement. Mhm.
Yeah. And so no matter how much you try, it's kind of like when I was observing in a Head Start classroom. I won't tell you where. And the teacher was really frustrated with 3 or 4 children in the classroom because they can be frustrating, right? It happens. It's normal. But I was there when children were coming in, and she was like, "Oh, Sarah, what a cute outfit you're wearing. Oh, it's so good to see you. How was your weekend? Good morning, Johnny." I mean, it was just like that.
So different. Yes.
And
It was
I
clear.
pulled her aside later and I said, "Do you remember when you were greeting children?" "Oh, yeah. That's one of the things I do every morning." "Do you remember the difference in your tone when you were greeting Johnny?" And she said, "I didn't do anything different." I said, let me go back and replay it for you." And I did. And she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't do that." I said, "Yes, you did." And I said, "So that could be harming your relationship
Mhm.
with Johnny, who's wanting your attention and your affection and is trying anything he can do to get it."
Mhm.
And so I said, "Let's just try something for 2 weeks. Every time Johnny comes in, smile, give him a warm hug and say, 'I'm so glad you're here.' That's all you have to say."
And even get down on their level, right?
Yeah.
Look them eye to eye.
And so I went back in like 3 weeks later. She said, "I'm embarrassed to say that it worked." And I said, "Good. So now we have a tool in your toolbox
Mhm.
that if you're feeling that way and you're frustrated with someone," I always say to my students, the child that frustrates you the most is the one you need to spend the most time with.
I agree. So, okay, I don't know how much time we have. Do we have?
We have like 2 more minutes.
Oh yeah. So I have like 1,000 more minutes of words.
Oh, no,
to
wait.
share.
No, you have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, I was like, I have 1,000 more words. So the next, I'm gonna have to just keep you all day.
Okay.
What I was gonna say is that one of the reasons I like to look at when I'm sharing my own personal story of where I started as a classroom teacher and where I'm now and my play journey is I don't want someone who believes in play, but is not peaceful with it, not feeling very peaceful, to just take a group of kids and say, "Okay, we'll go."
Oh my God.
Now,
No.
I believe in letting children initiate play because I'm very peaceful with it now. The children, like you were just saying, the children know how you're feeling and they will, their emotions are directly, their mirror neurons are working, right? So like, I don't want someone who is not feeling very at peace with something to just go for it. I want them to talk about it, make a plan, think about how they're going to feel, even set up your own sentence stems for yourself mentally. Like, I'm going to put these materials out today. The children might blank, 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 blank. That will make me feel blank, 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 blank. I want them to think about that because I want them to feel okay. So the children feel confident. My number one goal, right, is for children to walk into a space and feel like they couldn't do anything wrong. They are going to explore with these materials. They're going to learn from them. They're going to learn everything they need to learn. And would you say developmentally effective work?
Effective.
Right. Thank you. I like that. I'd like to know more about your decision to change that in a bit. But
Happy
the point
to
is
share.
like the confidence, right? So confidence, children's confidence is directly related to the feelings of all involved in a situation. If you are letting them play, they're going at it, and you are doing this, or going like this, "Oh, I don't want to put it up. What are you doing?" The whole time.
Don't do that. Stop that.
Exactly. You're not, even if you're not saying stop that or don't do that, just that you know you're not okay. The kids know you're not okay. And then suddenly their work, which you know in its most authentic form is deep curiosity with materials in an environment or the people, is affected by all of that. Right?
And disrupted. It's disrupted.
And guess what? That negative impact that child, the next time they go play, even if it's with a different adult, they could, instead of just kind of following that natural inquiry, they look around for the adults first. And suddenly my choices and my curiosities are like, first, I'm going to see how the adults are feeling.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is
because I don't want to get in trouble. Oh, it's so much pressure
for 3 and 4 year olds. So when I say I would love for all adults, for us, Deb and I, we're just going to travel to every school in the country and say, let them play, and they're just going to do it. Right? Great. Yeah. Done. Now we can go travel. Yeah. Now we can go on a boat somewhere forever. Okay. But if we do that, there's going to be so many things that occur from that because they're not at peace with understanding what it's doing and how to be that adult person in the room that is supportive versus worried.
And so I think your reflection piece with them and their planning. What can I do? And let's just go back to the daily routine, right? What can I do to decrease the number of transitions? Because children need large blocks of time to direct their own learning, not 30 minutes, not siloed by, now we're going to do language, now we're going to do art. Now, don't do all that large group stuff.
I have a quick question. When I'm coaching, my job is part of my job is coaching. When I coach them, I love to say 90 minutes to 120 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. I was like, hey, we're from different places. Maybe we have different
hour and a half to 2 hours. Yeah. Okay. And you don't start like that. You start with an hour. Because they're not,
because the children we're learning about our children, what they need, what they're curious about, all that. Absolutely.
And then by the time, so in August, I started with an hour, but they did have 2 hours from 6:30 to 8:30. When people were arriving, they played.
Yeah.
Wherever they wanted.
You need to be available for all the children's greeting and love and support. Like if you do something that completely adult guide structured, how are you going to build those relationships with the family?
So they probably played, if I count the 2 hours of arrival, and not everybody arrived and had those 2 hours. So you have to take that into account. And then we had a 10 or 15 minute circle that nobody had to come to. If I wasn't good enough, they didn't come. And then we had another hour of child initiated play. And I may have said, I have this fun experiment if you want to come and play with me, but no one had to come. And then we had an hour outside of child initiated play. And then
I read this morning, I'm getting a little off topic, but I read this morning, The Right to Quit.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't read that book. Is it a book or an article?
It was an article that came through. I've signed up for all of the newsletters, articles, blogs from all the people, right? And so sometimes I get to read them all and sometimes I don't. But I think this one came from something done by Peter Gray or his group.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
The Right to Quit.
It was The Right to Quit. I can forward it to you if you don't automatically get that one. But it's all about every human right to quit. And so how that's impact like in play. Play can be identified easily when the children are allowed to just do something else. But if it's adult guided so much to where the child has to stay, then they're not allowed to quit. And that's a human dignity. If you think about you, me, the world, any adult will always feel better if they know they can get out of something, like quit, get a new job, quit a marriage that's not healthy, quit. Like it feels good to have that. And even the right to quit sometimes helps marriages because it's like, oh, well, if we can, we don't want to, we want to do better for each other. So even if it's like, if you're a believer in, relationships and staying, it's not about an out, like I have to get out. It's the feeling of freedom, right?
Well, and it's a choice whether I'm going to participate or not.
And I can start
that goes back to dignity and respect for the individual.
Right. And I can start something because I'm curious and decide this isn't at all what I would much rather, whatever. Yeah. So I love that. I read that this morning, so it's been on my brain all day, but
I love it. Love it.
I was going to say something earlier and I lost my thought, but
Okay.
anywho,
2 more minutes.
okay. So all I was going to, I was like thinking about the different topics that I usually kind of talk about when I'm thinking about peace, finding peace, is that when and if someone's, so I have a partner who doesn't have any background in early childhood, right? And so we share 2 children, we guide 2 children. And it has been powerful for the last 5 years. We met 5 years ago when my oldest was 3. And it's been powerful for me as a person who wants to share vulnerability in a journey, that using my story and what I understand about children to support my partner's role in guiding children. Because I see the fear. And I think about occupations, adult occupations right now that teach you to look for the worst, solve every problem, don't let anything go wrong, do what you're told, occupations, like adult occupations.
Which is so stressful, right? So stressful.
I think it's the norm. I think most adult occupation, I mean, you hear stories like working for some fancy company in, California, that like they want you to think, they want you to have ideas, they want you to play. But like, I don't think most jobs in the world are. So no wonder adults who aren't in where we are, who are constantly reading about play, reading the research, talking to other practitioners, supporting one another, passionate conversations about how we reserve the rights for kids. No wonder other adults who are not in those daily conversations don't feel very peaceful with, let's see what happens.
Right. Oh no.
So the unpredictability of play.
Well, and when we think about the structure that is currently in our school systems and in our childcare programs, where children are required to follow the teacher's routine or to follow the school's routine and to be told where to go, what to do, how long to stay there, we're growing adults who
need the same thing.
Feel secure unless that's present versus, and so think of all the problem solving, critical thinking piece that they're missing out on because they feel like they have to, just as you were talking about, looking around to see what the adults' faces look like. Oh my goodness. Okay, Tessa, don't go anywhere. This has been amazing. I'm going to close this out.
Can I leave with one
more
thought?
thing?
Yeah.
Of course.
So my personal mission statement I created a few years ago, and it's always growing. It's basically to advocate peace for children and those who guide them in all spaces, always. And you picked up on it, the reflective piece. So I want anyone who's like a part of this conversation, whether it be with you and me or out there in the world, is to think about that reflection process and the practice, and not think about, you don't need to know everything about play. You don't need to know all the research necessarily, but if you sit and you make thoughtful plans, I'm going to find a place in my schedule where I feel most at peace to try this, what kids might do, how I'm going to feel. And you just go through that process of kind of planning with human emotion involved, not just planning for like materials and time. That's great, right? We all do that. Lesson planning. What are we going to do at what time? What materials do I need? But I want there to be just that one more piece of planning. How will I feel when? And how will I work with it, with that feeling? And that is the journey. That is the journey to eventually finding peace, because when you see it for 15 minutes and you are okay, like you're at peace when you're seeing what kids can do for 15 minutes, it's going to grow you naturally. Right?
And it's going to increase their opportunities.
Exactly. You are going to see it and go, I have
humans that we want them to be. Right?
Yes. Fully human. And on top of all that, you are just modeling such beauty, right? That reflective practice, that willingness to think and try. It's just good. It's just being a good human.
It is being a fabulous human. All right, don't go anywhere.
Okay.
To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.